And there's quite a lot of unpopular decisions. I know, lunches and things like that. They're unpopular decisions, but
yeah, let's come on to those.
Yeah.
Look, I want to talk to you about those things. So obviously, £15 million was spent to remove Eric and Dan, which are expensive errors.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm just going to take 2 or 3 examples. £40,000 was taken away from the former Players Association. Now, that's not the players that played under Sir Alex Ferguson or even in the last 10 years. They're players from the 1960s and 70s.
Yep.
I look at that and I have a little bit of knowledge of the club, obviously having been there for 25, 30 years. I just look at that and I think it's £40,000 from players who are giving a lot back to sort of the local community. They're obviously big supporters of United. Why not look at that 40,000 and put Harry Maguire and Bruno in a dinner? Sell 1,000 tickets for 30, 40, 50 quid, raise the money through a dinner, maybe do a raffle and auction, give the ex-players their money, and do it in a way whereby you're not looking like it's a cruel decision, which it is. Why would that not be looked at as a shopping list of things that, that's got a health warning to it? They're former players, they're people who do a lot of good for them. I'm not talking about the sort of, this isn't the players who played my era, the players from the 70s and 80s. Why would that decision be made?
We'll get back to Gary and Sir Jim in just a quick second, but remember, if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. Don't forget to click the notification button so that you know when the next Big D video hits. And just remember, if you've got something to say, if something is bubbling up inside of you that you need to express, please put it in the comments. The Big D reads all of the comments. Now, in this clip, Gary Neville is going to be guilt-tripping Sir Jim Ratcliffe with regards to all the cost-cutting measures that he has implemented, including the instances where they take away the free lunches for the workers, and also when they take away the charity money from the former players from the 60s and 70s. It's a really interesting clip because Gary Neville goes hard on Sir Jim here, and you can see Sir Jim squirming a little bit. So have a look at the clip and stick around for after the clip, because the Big D is then going to be giving his thoughts on this interesting dynamic. Here they are.
Well, nobody suggested that because I would have supported that. But
Jim, that alarms me, because if people aren't suggesting that to you at the club, then
I don't think the people at the club are not. They're not. Most of the people at the club, they're not cruel or heartless people. But I think.
But it's 40 grand.
Yeah, I know, but. There's
Harry and Bruno can just turn up for a dinner, raise 50, 60, 70, 100 grand for them. Why didn't the current players put £1,000 each in for them? Things like that, if it came to me and I was looking at a decision like that, and these guys who've been putting so much time into the club over so many years, it just looks, why can't we reinstate that?
Well, maybe we can, I don't know, I can have a look at it. But I'm not
aware
at that level of, honestly, Gary, I'm not aware of that at that
detail.
Level of detail, to be honest with you.
I
think though, if you just step back just for a second and look at the bigger, the philosophy is if you look after the pennies, the pounds look after themselves. All right. So, I don't think we can say, well, we can overlook the little things, we'll just attack the big things. I don't like that, because that confuses people, and ultimately people then start to make the wrong decisions about the big things. And I think, that philosophy of and spend the money like it's your own money. But you're right. It does have, the club has got community responsibilities as well, and it's sort of part of the community.
Yeah.
But if I can say that Manchester United has lost money for the last 7 years, and it's something like in the last 4 years alone, it's lost 330 million pounds.
It's horrific.
That's a third of £1 billion in the last 4 years. During that period of time, he's been recruiting lots of new people, on top of a workforce which was already enormous. So, we finished up with 1,150 people. We've increased the cost base of running. So if you look at a couple of really simple numbers, in the last 7 years, since 2016, we increased the cost of running the club, which are the operating costs of running the club, so just the people and the fixed costs, if you like. So all the costs, excluding the player costs, we increased the cost by £100 million. in the last 7 years, since 16. And the player salary bill increased by £100 million. So that went from 150 to 250. This went from 170 to 270. And in that period of time, the top line, the revenue, increased by only £100 million.
So £170 million deficit.
So you just finish up with a situation which is untenable. It doesn't work. If every year you spend more money than you earn, ultimately that's the road to ruin. And unfortunately, and it's not until we mentioned it a couple of times today, it's not known, Manchester United would have run out of money at the end of this year. November this year, the club runs out of cash.
Do you realise how...
That's sort of quite a big...
But do you realise how bad that is to hear? I know that's a fact, by the way, because over the last 2 or 3 years, I think the fans who obviously got an interest in the business side of the club have been tracking the club's desperate situation, the mismanagement over the last 10 years. This is the richest football club in the world when it comes to revenue. Yeah. But because of...
Top three. Three of us up there.
Top three in the world. Yeah. And it's having to cut £40,000 from ex-players and now removing food from members of staff in the canteen. I mean,
but the alternative isn't very tenable, is it? Which is the club goes bust at Christmas. We don't want that.
No, absolutely.
We don't want that.
No, we absolutely don't want that. But we also have to, I think, make decisions in light of sort of the impact that they're going to have. Because, you know, United, as you know, you're a fan, has a soul, it has a heart. Yeah. And I think when it comes to food and Manchester United staff being fed, the idea of me eating differently than my compatriots who are in the office, the kitmen, the groundsmen, the people who are, to be fair, the sort of my friends at the club, because I was in there for 25 years, I find that difficult from an inequality perspective. Yeah.
However, I mean, I get that, Gary, and I understand that, but you have to deal with. We can't put our head in the sand. We have to deal with the problem, and it's a big problem, not a small problem, because the numbers I've given you, I've just given you, they're big numbers. They're not small. These are not.
They're horrific.
Penny numbers, and as you say, this is the biggest club in the world, and if it just goes on year after year after year, what happens if you spend more money than you earn is every year you have to go to the bank and borrow more money. So every year, I know.
Is that one of the problems?
I know that's how you feel about lunches, but we have to go to the bank down the road and we have to borrow the money to give everybody a free lunch. 95% of people in the UK don't get a free lunch. I don't get a free lunch. I've never had a free lunch. Nobody else gets a free lunch. And the vast majority of people don't get a free lunch. It's a nice perk if you get one, but in the modern world, most people don't get a free lunch. And at the moment, Manchester United can't afford to give people free lunches because they have to go to the bank and borrow it. And I don't think... And at the end of the day, it's fans' money, isn't it? The fans are the guys that are paying for these free lunches because they're the guys who buy the tickets, they're the guys who pay for the TV subscriptions, and they're the guy who buys the shirts. Those are the three bits of income that Manchester United have got. So I sort of think of that money that we're spending at Manchester United. It's not my money, it's the fans' money. Should I be spending the fans' money on a free lunch? Or should I be spending the fans' money on a new player who might win some silverware? That's how I look at it. And you may say, well, that's a bit...
Can we not do both?
I think the answer to that is yes, we can, but we cannot do that today. I don't honestly...
You mentioned...
Because I think otherwise you're trying to draw a line, aren't you? We can have a free lunch and then... Or maybe that guy can, drive an S-Class down to London or... And you get all these blurry lines about, what's acceptable, what's not. I mean, at the moment, two of those last 7 years, we've lost £100 million of cash. I mean, they're big, big numbers, and we have to stop that. And, we have to get Manchester United's... If you look at the sequence of things we're trying to do at the club, we've got to put the house in order, in other words, put it on a sound financial footing. So in the future, we can maybe take some more generous decisions. But before you can get the house in order, you have to put the management team in place, because otherwise you start making the wrong decisions about what and who. Because you've got to make what decisions and who decisions when you're cutting the costs, don't you? Who you want to keep the good guys, lose the guys that are not quite so good, all those sorts of things. So you've got to put your management team in place. That takes time because everybody in football gets gardening leave. So the last member of that team arrived last week, which is Mark Armstrong from PSG, who's the commercial guy. management team, then you've got to get the house in order, the financial structure. And then it's all about recruitment after that, isn't it? It's all about, Manchester United in the last, since Sir Alex retired, spent $1 billion on players, which is pretty much the same as Manchester City or Liverpool. In fact, Liverpool hasn't spent $1 billion, but we haven't spent it that well. So that, at the end of the day, that then becomes the absolutely number one issue for the club, is to get recruitment right. But and that needs data analysis and all that type of stuff, which we haven't got, as you know. But some of the better clubs have. And then I think in 3 years' time or 5 years' time, Manchester United will be the most profitable club in the world. It'll have, if we go down this road of the new stadium, it'll have the most iconic stadium in the world, and it'll be winning silverware.
I find this clip quite interesting because what you've got is a capitalist masquerading as a socialist, interviewing and grilling another capitalist. At least with Sir Jim, he's open and honest about who he is. But I just find it a little bit disingenuous with Gary Neville. A little bit. Criticising a guy for trying to streamline his business. It's not as if Gary Neville is some kind of generous saint. I mean, he created hotel football and charged £5 a pint outside Old Trafford when he said he wanted to create a footballing environment for the fans. So for him to sort of grill Sir Jim Ratcliffe for just basically trying to make his business, the business of Manchester United, profitable, then I just find it a little bit disingenuous, really. But that aside, see, the big D doesn't mind someone that wants to make a couple of quid. I mean, take Gary Neville's best friend, David Beckham. Clearly that guy wants to make money. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money. But the thing is that sort of gets on my nerves, gets under my skin. It actually makes my skin crawl, right? It's when people get on the high horse about other people trying to make money when they make money themselves. And I'm glad Sir Jim kind of sticks up for himself a little bit there. He says you've got to draw a line somewhere. And, you can't have one rule for one and another rule for someone else. I.e., you can't be not giving free lunches here and then letting someone travel down somewhere first class or whatever. I totally understand that. He's trying to set a mindset at Manchester United that, they're not going to be frivolous anymore with their cash. But he did say, in his defence, that we're going to make tough decisions now. We're going to tighten the belt now in the hopes that in the long term, we can start to make more generous decisions. I like that. But for someone like Gary Neville to sort of get on his high horse about all of this, it actually honestly makes my skin crawl, Gary Neville has made some weird business decisions over the years, like going out to the Far East when he criticised the LGBTQ stuff, but still took the money. The Middle East, that is, for the World Cup and stuff. And then the hotel football thing as well. And then he tries to act like a man of the people, but he has Keir Starmer on the overlap, who isn't exactly the man of the people, and he's actually made the country worse. It's like, no. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing, really, on that front. But if Gary Neville still made the decisions that he was making, but wasn't getting on his high horse, it wouldn't bother me as much. It wouldn't bother me as much. I think it's sort of the disingenuousness of it, really, that it's just not quite nice, really. Make a couple of quid, fair enough, but those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, necessarily speaking, But anyway, yeah, I mean, I totally understand Jim's point of view there. He's taken an overall philosophy to streamline the club. Look after the pennies, which will look after the pounds and whatnot. I think there could have been a little bit more nuance there. So despite my feelings towards the position Gary Neville's got him in this interview, he does make some objectively interesting points, which I do agree with, in the sense of, yeah, okay, if you want to take the 40 grand away, why don't you get the players to chip in a grand each? Or why don't you get Bruno and Harry Maguire to do a charity lunch, etc., etc., etc.? Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I don't mind that at all, really. And you can tell that Jim Ratcliffe was quite impressed by that idea. And it just makes me wonder if Jim Ratcliffe has just got ruthless businessmen advising him. Because it sounds to me like he needs someone else there just to be in his ear every now and then, just to say, this will look bad. We need to find an alternative for this. So if they say, let's get rid of the lunches and let's get rid of the canteen stuff, you can have someone in there saying, well, if you're going to do that, that's fine, but we need to make a solution to make sure that we're replacing that particular perk for something a little bit more sustainable, so to speak. But yeah, it's an interesting set of affairs, really. State of affairs at Manchester United, because at the end of the day, it is a business and it needs to be sustainable over the medium to long term, and the club needs to get back to winning ways, concentrate on recruitment and moving forward. In terms of the Big D's just trying to think about, if he was in charge of Manchester United, would he have gone about it in a different way? It's hard to answer that question, really, because what fixes a lot of problems at Man United is the player recruitment. Getting rid of the deadwood and getting people in for reasonable cost, for reasonable wages. Because there's too many players that are overpaid at Manchester United. So, for instance, Rashford, Casemiro, Anthony, Sancho, one or two others. They're probably worth about half what they're getting now, probably, realistically. So if that happened, that would free up a hell of a lot more money, so that they could, not have to make the decisions that they have been making moving forward. But it was interesting to see Sir Jim stick up for himself there, and I totally see where he's coming from. He does seem anxious and aggy, and he doesn't seem to like the spotlight, but he needs to get used to it. And it seems to me, him making these kind of big decisions, he seems to be failing competency tests. Because, see, the thing is, he's going to be used to making tough decisions, and he's not going to mind making tough decisions, because to be as successful in business as he has been, you need to be able to make tough decisions. But what he's not used to is fame. He's famous now. In fact, no, he's not even famous. He's infamous now. It's one thing being famous, but to be infamous is a different kettle of fish altogether. And in this instance, he's just gone complete heel. And he needs to get used to the spotlight, the dreaded Manchester United microscope. He needs to know precisely what he's going to say in answer to the questions that he's going to be asked. He's going to need to anticipate what he's going to ask, and he's going to need to be able to answer those questions and justify them logically without making him or the club look bad, and make people understand that tough decisions need to be made. So I think it's good that he's had this interview so far. I really do. He's taken on the tough questions. He's taken it on the chin. He's held his hands up when it might have been a bad decision, and he said that errors have been made, and it's early doors. It's early doors. We'll see how we go. But anyway, what do you guys think? Is it an absolute circus at Manchester United? Do you think Sir Jim is an incompetent owner? What do you think? Thoughts in the comments, and the Big D will see you in the next one.